Hello and welcome to the YouTube and Facebook channels for SilverSilkOnline.com. Hello, I am Stephanie Reis from Maureen Bradley Designs, and today I have a necklace that I was inspired to make after creating these earrings that I shared with you in my last video. Hold on just a sec. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to do is to tell you about the materials I'm using. So of course I'm using the Seafoam hollow mesh, which I've already gone ahead and I've put in 2 pieces of the white leather. It's 2mm white leather. And I have 5 strands of this leather that I made, cut them at, they're about 10 inches long. We may be cutting them as well to fit our necklace focal. We will be using a button from Dress It Up Buttons. I'm using a piece of flat mesh, about a 3-inch piece of flat mesh in antique white. I have some silver chain here. I have a starfish pendant, so a pendant of your choice, preferably one that has a hole in it or a hole that is horizontal, because that will be important later in our video. And then some silver head pins, ball head pins I'll be using. We may or may not be using these scalloped pieces with our beads, but definitely we are going to need these type of, they're large hole silver beads. This one has a connector piece on it. This one does not. So I have 2 of these with a connector piece and then one without. I have some starfish beads. I have these copper connectors for the leather to go through. Starfish beads, and I have some little tiny silver, or excuse me, white, these have an AB finish, Aurora Borealis finish on them. And then some tools that we may need for this are going to be chain nose pliers. I have 2 sets that I use. And then I have round nose pliers. And I have a pair of flush cutters. Okay. So I think I neglected to say how long my my hollow mesh was. It is approximately 7 inches long. And to start, I am going to go ahead and grab these large hole tubes with a connector piece on them, and they have a lovely little dragonfly emblem on them. They're so pretty. But dragonflies often fly around water, so I really like that they had little dragonflies on them. And for this, I'm just simply going to be attaching a starfish with a mother of pearl. This is a turquoise starfish with a mother of pearl round. I think it's 4mm with about a 1/2 inch of chain, which is like 5 links for this one. So I'll need 1 more link, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I don't ever usually cut chain that's thicker with my cutters, with my flat cutters. I just open the link and then I'll just be wasting a link. If it's fine chain, it's probably okay, but the larger the links, you could ruin your cutters. So I am simply just going to grab a 1/2 inch of chain and I'm going to attach it to a starfish with a mother of pearl round. And those are here. I have 2 more in my bag of rounds. And then I'm just grabbing the silver head pin. And let me move these out of the way for just a sec so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just feeding that on there like so. These are going to dangle like that. And then I'm adding the turquoise starfish with a hole in between the legs. And I've got one of the legs up and it's a rather large hole, as you can see. So I'm going to get my excuse me, round nose pliers as close to that hole as I can, so that I don't have an extremely large stem hanging up with my wire. And we're just going to do a wrap loop where I bend my wire towards me, rotate up, and I'm coming around, rotating my pliers up, and I'm bringing my wire around. And then I want to add that little bit of chain loop onto this one. The other one won't have any chain because it's going to dangle a little bit further up from this one. And then I'm just taking my pliers and wrapping around my stem that's up. Oops. To create my connection with the chain. And then my little starfish, I'm just wrapping it as far as it will go, and then I'm going to clip that little stem away as close to it as I can get and holding it down so that it doesn't fly away. And then I'm just going to take my pliers and I'm just going to move that little stem down. There we go. And straighten my loop like so. A little tough to tuck that little piece in. All right, so now we have this one, and I'm just going to straighten it just a little bit more and make it right next to that. So we've got that piece, and now I need one more head pin. I'm going to feed my other mother of pearl bead on through my starfish and do another connection, and I'm getting my pliers as far down as I possibly can, and I'm going to bend the wire towards me again. I don't want a really large loop, so I'm just making a small loop, small as I can given that odd connection there with the starfish, holding my loop and wrapping it around. There we go. As many times as it will go until it's snug with the starfish. Whoops. Which is so nice that it will move with you. Again, clipping away that piece, and then I'm just tucking in that little stem as far as it will go, straightening my loop so that there's no rough pieces hanging. And I have grabbed two 4mm silver jump rings, open jump rings, so that I can attach my pieces to the large hole connector pieces. And I'm just going to attach them. Here, I'm putting this one on first, and then I'm adding the one without the chain with the cut end to the back. And then I'm just going to add them like so. So since we are not directly connecting to our piece, we also have to make sure we are adding them correctly. So since I've got, let's see, yeah, I put that one on first, like so, and then the other one went on second. Yes. So I will do the opposite for the other one so that they hang correctly. So I'm putting the connector piece to the back, and then I'm adding this one on, and then I'm adding my connector piece. And I've got two pretty little dangles ready for my necklace. There we go. So it's going to hang similar to that on each side of my mesh. That's where I'm going to be feeding it on. Okay, so the next step in this piece is I'm going to go ahead and take my mesh and leather piece that I have, and I'm going to add my large hole beads. And I'm going to add them this way. So I'm just simply sliding. I'm going to have to close my mesh, my hollow mesh, and I'm going to wiggle my little dragon piece. Careful not to let my leather slip out. And I'm just simply sliding my connector piece over. And if you grab onto it, it will just gently slide onto my mesh piece. And I'm just going to wiggle that up, making sure my leather is not getting too, because I want these ends exposed. All right, and then I'm going to add the large hole bead, silver bead, without the connector. Again, just gently sliding it over. I'm going to grab onto the hollow mesh and the leather, not pushing down too much, and then sliding this one on this. And I'm just gently again easing my large hole bead, making sure my leather's not coming off. Like so. Oops. And we'll have to just finagle it to where my pieces are in place. Towards the middle, but spaced out. Like so. The next step that I am choosing to do on this mesh part is to take a piece of, this is 24 gauge, I'm sorry, 26 gauge of copper wiring, and because these are subject to slide and I want them to stay where they're at, I'm going to come in on the inside of them and just put a little bit of a wire wrap so that they don't move. Of course they could move this way, but I don't want them coming in any closer. So I am coming in. So my dragonfly is about 1 3/4 inch in from where my mesh starts. So I'm happy with where it's at, and I'm just gonna come in and give it a little wire wrap so that it doesn't move anywhere. Whoops. And you could, before placing the other two pieces, you could sort of just add them after the fact. So I could go ahead and remove that. I'm going to do my measurement at 1 3/4 inch on the mesh, and I'm just going to gently give it a little bit of a wrap, not pressing down too much because it could cause that mesh to go in. So I'm just gently wrapping it around with my fingers, like so, just creating a bit of a stop. So let me go ahead and take that one off. And again, it's 3 wraps, and I'm going to stop there because I don't need much. I'm going to clip this back end off, and I'm going to take my pliers and I'm just going to tuck it into the hollow mesh there. Just grab it and tuck it in. Hopefully you can see that I'm just trying to tuck it in. There we go. I'm just tucking it into the mesh. Gently squeezing, not a whole lot. And then I'm a big fan of coils, so I'm going to measure about 1 inch of that wire, and then I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to just start it at a round, coming all the way in with a loop, and keep going, and then I can grab my chain nose pliers and then just gently coil the wire around while holding the loop. And this will create a little decorative effect while creating a stopper for my bead not to go anywhere. And then, so once you get to the wire, I'm just making sure it's straight, and then I've coiled all the way in, and I'm going to flatten it with my fingers like so, gently on the wire like so. I may have to help it a little bit with my pliers, pushing down on it. And then I'll just give my fingers a little help with it. I'll have my fingers help. So I've got a little stopper here, a little copper coil stopper. And again, it is 1 3/4 inches in on that end. And I'm going to do the same thing on this other. So now the next thing I'd like to do is, I have been thinking about how I can make a connection with this flat mesh, this SilverSilk flat mesh. I was thinking we could do a bail. Oops, I'm so sorry, I hit the camera. So I have a 3-inch, yeah, it's a 3-inch piece of antique white flat mesh, and what I'd like to do with it is make a bail. So I'm going to take this and feed my flat mesh over this silver piece, and it's going to be difficult to try to do it connected, so I just want to measure my starfish, and I'm hoping I can get my fingers out of the way so you can see this. I just want my starfish to be directly under my metal piece, and with a Sharpie marker I am going to just mark on my flat mesh on both sides where I want it, where the connection is going to be. So in the front here, and then here on the back. So now we can take that and put it to the side and make our bail. And to do that, I want to use my Dress It Up button, and I'm going to use my holes horizontally as well. And I also have, again, I want to use some 26 gauge wire to make my connection. And you don't need a lot, but for maneuverability, I'm going to do about 5 inches. And we're probably going to waste a little bit, but again, you'll need some to be able to move the wire in. So I have my 5-inch piece of copper wire, and I'm going to do this top part. I'm going to match up the holes and put this one on this side as well and match up my holes like so. And then I'm adding my button. I'm actually going to go ahead and add my wire through. And I want it to be even, so we're just going to even them up a little bit. and pull them through on both sides, and we do not want them to crisscross. So there's that. So now I'm going to feed my 2 pieces of wire where the hole is, or that black dot. I have to just wiggle it through on each end like so. Then I'm going to pass my wires through the hole like so, making sure that they're not crossing again like so. And then I need to come through the opposite end where that black dot is. And you may have to not keep things very tight at the moment, so we're just going to pass it through where that black dot is. Like so. And I'm pushing I do want them sort of even, so I went up 1 on the mesh, and now I'm pulling it down. Again, it's not very tight, right? So now I'm going to take my wire, and I'm going to take opposite sides, and I'm going to feed it back up through the button. So we're going to take this side, we're going to go through the mesh and through the hole and through the mesh on the other side. I'm just sort of trying to keep it straight, and I'm going back through the hole on the button on the opposite side, and you may need your pliers to again pull that through. Let's see. My fingers. All right. So we've got that much. I'm not pulling it tight. So I can take the other side and then pull it through the mesh, the hole. I'm just holding things in place. Putting my wire through the hole. And then this part's a little tricky to get it to go through, but it will. You just have to work with it. And then there it is coming through the hole. So I'm just going to push down, and I'm going to grab that wire and pull on it so that we have this connection. So now you've got these loops on the back side. You're going to push down. Actually, we're going to pull. Oops. So that we get the loop on the button down, like so. And now you can take the stems and pull those through gently, gently. And you might just have to work them a little bit. Push down on this, down on the leather, and I'm just pulling those loops through, creating my connection. And I have a connection in the back, like so. Now, after that struggle, I'm just going to take my wires and I'm going to crisscross them, like so, making a twist as close as you can to the button. Like so. And I'm going to do this for about 3/4 of an inch, where I'm just kind of twisting the wire together. Careful not to overlap it. got about just a little over 1/2 inch, which is fine. And I'm just twisting these wires together. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and clip that away, holding on to it so it doesn't fly away. And now I have this sort of crazy looking thing here with this sticking out. And we're going to coil it down. So I'm making a loop with my round nose pliers, like so. And I'm going to keep going until I've coiled it all the way down. Like so. And then I'm just going to fold it, and then I'm going to bring it around. Like so. And it is flat on my button. And that is my button connection. Like so. Alright, so I'm going to take this piece off of this side, and I'm going to feed my connection onto with my starfish, like so. Like so. So now, as you may guess, we have to secure our bail in place, and I'm going to do that with a little bit more copper wiring. I don't need much. I'm going to do about 6 inches. Again, that's 26 gauge copper wire, and I just want to remove it under both the bail and my silver piece until it's even on top. And again, I'm just going to wire wrap it into place. My fingers will let me. A lot of this is just kind of sewing with wire. And then I also have to make sure my piece is in place as well, so that when I do have it, it's exactly where I want it. And I want this to be at the top of my piece so that it's secure. Like so. I'm going to come around one more time and feed this edge in. There, it's coming. And I just need to make sure whoops, my wire wrap is coming undone here. Whoops. All right. So I've got this back at the top where my coils are facing the front as well. and I wanted my wire wrap on top. And I just wanted to make sure that my piece was centered before I grab my wire, because if it's under the mesh, it's definitely not going to move. All right. And I'm digging it. Okay. So now I'm just going to clip those little pieces away. As flush as I can. Get them. So the best thing I can think of is like to make sure your pieces are flush. This is in the front. And then we can work on this, making sure it hangs properly. There it goes. Because I definitely don't want my, and then I'm just going to clamp it down here and here. There we go. Oops, my starfish roll. There we go. So the next part of this to get my finished ends done is to bring in some E6000 glue. Make sure I have my glue opening there. And now I'm going to grab my copper pieces. I'm going to add a little bit to my copper on one end, getting that in there like so. And then I want to grab my other 3 pieces of leather, and I'm going to add them all together. So this, I'm going to do this side first, as I've got my ends. Whoops, I have one end that's not flush. So let's clip that away, making sure all the ends are flush together. And I'm just simply going to glue in this side. So I've got my glue and my leather that I'm going to be putting inside this glue here, and turning it so that all the pieces are in place, making sure not to twist my leather, like so. And if you have any glue that comes out, I always like to check and make sure that I've gotten all the strands covered with glue, and I have. So I'm going to come in, and that is going to have to dry. Okay, so now I'm ready to glue in my other side, and I want to go ahead, and I thought that maybe it would be really neat to add another of these so that it sits in the middle on top of my hollow mesh as just a decorative piece. And so I'm going to need to cut these flush with one another. I don't want my leather to be too far away from my hollow mesh, so I've just been sort of eyeballing how much. The important thing is that I'll have to be flush there, and I just sort of wanted a 2-tiered piece with this beautiful white leather, and so I'm thinking something like that. The shape of it automatically kind of bends in towards the neck, And so I'm thinking that I can just clip this extra away here so that I can feed it into the other half of my, and of course these two need to be flush, to my other opposite connector piece. And now I'm simply just going to glue those in with more E6000. And my advice is to make sure that you have a good seal on your leather. Clean up any residual glue. This E6000 is really great for imperfection. When gluing, you can take away the little strands of glue that kind of hang out and clean up your metal piece. And I advise waiting 24 hours to continue on finishing your piece. And so now I'm just simply inserting all the leather pieces, strands, into my copper piece, my copper. And that is where we're at the moment. And so I'm going to let this dry, making sure all my pieces are in and covered with glue. And I will be back to finish. I have allowed my necklace focal, my connector pieces to dry, and I've been just giving them a little bit of a tug, and they are secure inside the holes. And so now we are on the last leg of this making this necklace. So I just wanted to share with you how I was making my chain. I went ahead and made this side and attached it, and I've gone ahead and made a little bit here, and then I'll just finish the chain for you to show you how I made the chain, just in case you've never made chain before. I absolutely love chain when I'm sick or not feeling well and I really want to be working and making jewelry. I tend to make chain. So not that I'm sick right now, it's just something that I really love to do, and it's so versatile. You can use any beads, you can use any format or pattern. It's so much fun. It's almost like stringing, and the wire wrapping is just kind of maybe almost meditative. So now I've got some 22 gauge copper wire, and as you can see, I'm mixing the silver with the copper, which I just love so much. I love copper and silver together, so this was perfect. And I'm taking off one, looks like this is 1 3-inch piece, and then this is about maybe 2 inches for the shell. You don't need a really long piece. So I'm starting with the flush cut of the wire, and I'm going to make a bend with my chain nose pliers, and then I'm coming in with my round nose pliers, and I'm going to make a loop, rotate my pliers up, and then bring my loop forward like so. And then I'm going to open that loop just a little bit because I'm going to be adding my metal piece so that I can make that connection. And then I'm just going to grab ever so gently to that, and you can grab the outside of it too. And I'm just going to wire wrap 3 times. And I'm getting short on that little stem, so I'm just going to wrap it in, making sure not to bend my loop. And I'm going to leave that little stem in place like that because my bead caps are a little wide, or they have a wide hole on them, as you can see. And if I close that little stem down or tucked it in, my bead cap would actually go over my wraps, and I don't want that. So you can see how it's just sticking out just a little bit. And then I'm adding my little piece here. straightening my loop a little bit. I've grabbed my wire close to the bead. I'm bending forward, rotating up, coming around so that I can make another wrap. Oops, went too far over. So I'm just going to pull my wire down a little bit, and then I'm wrapping again with my fingers or with my pliers, whatever you're comfortable with. And then I am going to snip this one next to the wire, holding on to the little piece so that it doesn't fly away. And then with my chain nose pliers, I'm just straightening my loops a little bit. And in place. And then making sure everything is okay. I have a little bit too much of a stem there, so what I'm going to do is clip it just outside of the large hole on my bead cap, and then leaving just a little bit of an edge. You should not even feel it. If you do, you can file it down with an emery board, but that will keep my bead cap in place, and it will protect it from sliding down over my wire wrap. All right, so that looks good. So now I'm just going to wrap my shell into place, and then we can attach that side. Bending forward, and then I'm taking my round nose pliers and making a loop like so. And I tend to just open them a little so I don't pull the other loop wire, and I just attach it like so. And then I'm holding everything in place gently, and I'm wrapping about 3 times. And I'm just gently adding the wire wrap in place. Fixing my little loop here and straightening my wire so that it goes into my bead straight. And I chose to make them go downward, so I'm going to feed the straight edge of the clamshell first. And then now I'm just going to do a loop on the opposite side. Same technique. Rotating up and coming around, and again I'm grabbing the wire and I'm just wrapping with my fingers. Until my bead is sort of snug in place. And then I'm trimming close to the bead for this one. And again I'm going to be straightening everything, tucking those loose ends in on both sides. I think I got that side. And I just like to make sure everything's straight. Just takes a minute to kind of make sure my lines are straight and my loops are straight. Right, so that is in place, and now I can attach this strand to my connector. And I'm just adding it into that hole there. And then I'm going to add make sure I'm not twisting it so that they're going upside down, because they're only on one side. I think that's correct. Oh, I just knocked it off. All right, we will try that again. Let me move my loop a little bit up. And so I'm just adding it into place like so. And then try again to close my loop really well, front and back, never side to side. So there's that, and I wanted my piece to sit right at the neck, so that means the standard for right at the neck is 16 inches, and so as I measure, I'm right at 7 inches with my chain, and I'm going to add my jump rings and my clasp, and that all will take up about 1 inch, which will bring me to 16 inches, just in case you're wondering how I got to that. Everybody's different, but if you're just making jewelry to sell or to put on a website, then its standard is 16 inches, and it typically sits right at the base of the neck. So I'm just adding my toggle, clasp, opening the jump ring, and these are so difficult to see the opening. Okay, I think that's it. Did I get it? A little bit more. There it is. Those twists are so hard to see the opening. All right, so I've added my other half of my toggle. Making sure it's closed really well, and that is my finished piece. Just a note about what, before I try it on, I will say that I think that I may go, for the next time I do a bail, I did this bail once already, and I practiced with the 26 gauge wire, but I may even go with a finer gauge, just because the mesh is, you know, it's not, it's fine knitted wire, and so I just felt like maybe I would do even finer gauge, just because it's almost like you're sewing it in place. And it doesn't take much, and even the 26 gauge wire still felt a little heavy for connecting everything. So just one of those things that in retrospect of making this, that I really felt like maybe I would do that. So hang on, I will try it on for you. Okay, so I'm trying it on for you so you can see what it looks like. This is the finished necklace, and I really hope that you enjoyed what I shared with you today. I really had a fun time. I'm learning and growing so much. This time I really tried to plan out and write down the steps of how to share with you and how to make this. So I hope you really enjoyed it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and until next time.